I just want to start by saying that these classes, all the classes of the SCA today were sponsored in memory of Mr. Stanley Chera, Alav Shalom, by the Chera family. So you're all muted now, but if you have any questions, you could either put them in the chat or unmute yourself. I want to start by a question with either, if your camera's on, do a little wave, or if not, you could write something in the comment. I'm curious to know how many of you are actually, if any of you, I see who you are, so I know the answer to some of these people, but if any of you are actually in Israel, I don't think any of you are. Oh, I see Moe. Hi, Moe. Mabruk. I think most of you, Adele. Hi, Adele. Well, the reason I'm asking is because I find it a very odd concept that we're actually, and I'm saying we because for most of my life I was in New York and Brooklyn. So we celebrate Yom Haasmaut, which is an Independence Day of a country that nice that you would say, that we're not living in. So we're not living in this country, but yet we're celebrating the Independence Day of that country. And I find that very odd. I don't know if anyone else ever thought about that, but I just think that's very odd. And I think that part of the answer to why we do that has to do with what we look at as Geulah and what we look at as Galut, and how in what's going on right now in our day and age, in our life, is a little bit of a unique situation, because basically what Galut is, and we see it all through the Tanach, especially, I'm going to focus on Sefer Devarim a little bit, but we see it all over, that Galut is a punishment. And Galut is not somewhere we want to be. Galut is basically God telling us, I can't be in the same room with you right now. You need to go think about what you did and come back to me when you're ready to figure it out. So I'm going to screen share a second. Hopefully this will, you'll be able to see. It's just a couple of sources. So the first thing I'm going to show you is, which I think is, I could have chosen basically almost any section of Sefer Devarim, because Moshe is basically going through, getting the land, you're getting the land, but don't mess it up, don't mess it up. You're getting the land, don't mess it up. That's, his sort of repetition in most of what he's saying in Devarim. And I found this section of Psukim right here very pertinent to us, because basically what he's saying here is, God's going to bring you to the land. And basically he's listing all these things that God gives you the land, and there's houses you didn't build, and there's vineyards that you didn't plant, and there's all this abundance that you didn't really have a part of. And it's not me saying that it just appeared miraculously. Obviously, you did have some part in it. You created it, you built it. But what he's saying is it didn't come from nothing. It came from the fact that if you look at Pasuk Yebet, Yishameh lecha, in the middle of the section, Yishameh lecha pen tishkach et Hashem asher hotaticha me'Mitzrayim v'vet avadim. Right? So Hashem basically allowed us and gave us the strength and ability to build Eretz Yisrael and get to where we are in these psukim. And when we get there, don't forget that. Why? Because of the last pasuk of the section, pen yichara af Hashem lokecha bach v'shmidecha me'al pnei adama. Because if you forget that, you're losing the land. So basically from the get-go, from before we even enter the land, Moshe is saying, yes, you are going in there, but it is not in no way, shape, or form a given. And I think that's something that is, even as, I'm living here, I'm sitting here in Eretz Yisrael, thank God, but it's not a given that we only had, 72 years that we're celebrating this year. That's not a long time relative to history. It's really a very short blip in the history. So we don't know, we can't really take it for granted. We shouldn't, and we can't. And we also see this in another section a little bit earlier in Moshe's, in the same parasha in Ve'et Hanan. We see it a little earlier where he said, where he's actually, the name of the parasha, Ve'et Hanan, where he's begging God to let him in. And I think it's so important. This is relatively in the beginning of Sefer Devarim. It's so important that he's, that I think personally, that he's repeating this and sharing this to the people, because this was a personal prayer of Moshe, where this whole section where he's begging God to let him in. The people necessarily didn't know that. It's his own personal conversation, tefillah to God. And he's choosing to share this with them right as they're at the steps to enter the land, because he's saying, look how hard I prayed and begged and pleaded to let me in, for God to let me into this land, and I wasn't able to. But all I was able to do is, if you see, he says, you could go on top, Pasuk Chav Zayin, and you could see the land, but you can't enter it. So he's basically, by showing, I feel, by showing how much he begged and pleaded God to enter the land, he's showing, don't take this lightly that you're able to enter it, because I wasn't. I'm not. He knows he's gonna ultimately pass on the reins in Pasuk Kafche v'savet Yoshua, right? He's gonna pass on the reins to Yoshua. So all this conversation with Moshe and the people is not only to that specific generation going in. It's really, obviously it's Torah, it's written for all the generations. So it's there even for us, and especially for us, to reflect on that. And now, basically, so Galut is a punishment, right? And it's a little weird when we say that, because I don't feel, at least for myself, when we live our day-to-day life in Galut, we're very comfortable. I don't think we ever, unless we're not consciously thinking, oh, this is a punishment that I'm not in Eretz Yisrael. We are most of us, if not all of us, are very comfortable in our wherever we are, and in Brooklyn or anywhere else we are. And it doesn't feel like a punishment at all. We have shuls, we have schools. Maybe not right now, but we have all these abilities to connect and grow, and sources of Torah, sources of Judaism. So what's so bad? What's the punishment? I don't really feel that. So, but that's not the way that we should be looking at it, and the Torah is looking at it, because essentially every Galut is there to teach us a lesson, and that's a whole nother lesson class in and of itself, of what each Galut is supposed to, gain, have us gain and reconnect to God, because ultimately the goal of Galut is that we should do tshuva and come back to the land, and return to Him. And I think that in a way we see this the most in a little bit of an odd situation, but I think we see this the most with Yosef HaTzadik. Because if you look at the life of Yosef HaTzadik, I don't think anyone would say that he was very happy or comfortable in Eretz Yisrael. His brothers tortured him, they sold him. It was not a comfortable place for him to be. And even there's sources that say that he thought his father was in on it. So when he's in Egypt, he has a very rough start, but he ends as the second in command of Paro. So therefore, you would think he's living the life, and he's living the life in Galut. He's head of the country, he's royalty, he's saving Egypt, he's saving the surrounding lands, Eretz Canaan as well, Eretz Yisrael. But you see that even with all that strength and prosperity and power, he never loses sight of where he's truly meant to be. And we see this when he names his son Ephraim. And he names his son Ephraim because, no, wrong source, hold on. Oh, did I not put it here? Oh, I didn't put it here. Yeah, sorry, here it is. So why does he call him Ephraim? Because God helped me be successful in the land of my affliction, Eretz Oni, right? And why would he call it Mitzrayim, Eretz Oni? He thrived there, but he's still seeing that it's not where I should be. There is a lacking there. And as good as I have it here, this is not my home. And fast forward to the end of his life, we see that he tells his brothers take my bones home. Take my bones to be buried in Israel when you leave. God will save you. God will take you back to Egypt, back to Mitzrayim, to Eretz Yisrael, sorry, and take me with you. So even though he wasn't able to go there in his lifetime, he knows that that's ultimately a home. And now in this day and age, when God is telling us 72 years ago, come home. He's starting the Geulah process. He's telling us it's a start. It's definitely not finished. It's sort of like you could compare it to like, couples having problems. They were separated. They can't talk to each other, but now they're willing to go to, have marriage counseling. They're willing to sit on the couch. They're willing to have the difficult conversation with each other and say, I know we're having issues, but I want to move forward. So God's sort of saying, I'm opening the door for that conversation. I'm opening that door for reconnection. Come and be with me. And a lot of people took that, and a lot of people didn't take that. And basically, even the people that are still living in Galut, and obviously everyone listening here on this day of learning in honor of Yom Haasmaut appreciates and loves Israel. But I think, and I'm saying myself included, someone who lives here, we take it for granted. We take it for the fact that it'll always be here. We could jump on a plane and come for a bar mitzvah, for a wedding, for just a vacation, and it'll just be there. And even myself, who's been living here for almost 9 years now, in the beginning it was like you have this consciousness of, oh, everything in Israel is so great and every new experience, and then the novelty wears off because it's day-to-day life. You're working, you're going to school, dealing with the kids, the house, all the day-to-day things that you're dealing with in any country. It's life, and it's hard to maintain that consciousness. But then reality hits you in the face. And I'm just going to share a story of something that happened to me that really made it evident that we cannot take this land for granted. It was a few months back, more towards the beginning of the year. I'm forgetting the exact month, but there was a lot of rockets that were being sent from Gaza. And we knew this was happening. It was in the news, but it was localized to the south. And even as I say that, it's like even horrible to say like, oh, it was just the south. It was localized. Like we weren't so worried yet. And then one morning I woke up, regular day, get the kids ready. I was walking out of the door to take my daughter to school. And I get a text message from the teacher. School is closed today. Because, I think she wrote something like, because the Glal HaMatzav or something to that effect, like because of the situation. And I didn't check the news that morning. I didn't know what she was referring to. So I said to my husband, like, let's check the news, what's going on, why they all of a sudden cancel school. And we find out that over the night, there was like an insane amount of rockets being sent. And the intelligence was basically saying that throughout the day, there was going to be even more, and it was going to be throughout the whole country. So basically, I think almost all the country, majority, if not all the country, was on lockdown that day. And even at that point, I still sort of had this security of like, oh, I live in Modi'in, it's relatively safe, nothing's really going to happen. I'm not going to tell the kids anything. Like, why should I scare them? They're little. I'm not even going to talk to them about going to the safe room. And I told my daughter, oh, we're going to be home with mommy. It's going to be a fun day. Great, whatever. And fast forward about an hour or so, there's a siren, and we have to, I pick up the kids, run to the safe room, close the door. And my daughter's looking at me like, what's going on? And I said, she's 3.5, so you have to say it, mildly. But I was like, there's people that want to hurt us, and we need to be safe. So we come to the safe room, and this room is special. It's safe. I let her, it's the guest room, but I showed her, look, the door's a little different. It's safe, whatever. And in that moment, and you see her face, and she's like, why do people want to hurt us? And I'm like, I don't really know the answer to that question, but, and you think you lose that sense of security. And even for a couple of days after, like things went back to normal, but you still sort of have that feeling of, well, if I go to the park or I go to the store, like I want to be near somewhere I can get to a safe room, and you sort of, your consciousness gets, heightened. And then fast forward a week, 2 weeks, very quickly you go back to the same way. So it's very easy to go back and forth with that, taking our security, our stability in this land for granted. And I think that in this year, with the whole Corona situation, I think it's a very different Yom Ha'atzmaut, and it made me realize that more of why we can't and we shouldn't take Eretz Yisrael for granted. I think because in general, I mean, even with all the Yom Ha'atzmaut I celebrate in America, it's a very happy day. And, we have the carnival, the shuk in school, and you have the carnivals, and you have all the things. And especially in Israel, it's a day off, and people are doing barbecues, you're with family, you're with friends, everyone's out, the streets, the country's like all hustle and bustle. And this year, we're alone, we're home. People that aren't in Israel don't have the ability to get on a plane, whether they want to or not. We don't know when the next time it will happen, we could travel is. And even within Israel, you can't visit each other. I can't go have see friends or family here. And I think that it's just a little eye-opening to that stability and comfort we have of just in any aspect of our life, but especially with Israel. And I think when you look at the Tehillim where it talks about Yimish-Gechech Shalayim, Tishkach Yemini, it starts with Anharat Bavel, it starts in Galut, in Bavel, but I think the message could be taken to even in Eretz Yisrael itself, even in Yerushalayim itself, because even now we have Yerushalayim, we have Eretz Yisrael, but it's not Bnuya, it's not finished. There's still a lacking that is felt here, and that is not able to be fully actualized. And I think that, to me, that was the most evident in the summer before I made Aliyah. I was a counselor on the Aliyah program, and it was Tisha B'Av, the saddest day of the Jewish year, and we went to hear Echa we sat in Echa on the floor in the Davidson Center in the Southern Wall excavations. And if anyone's ever been there, it's the southern side of the wall, like by the Kotel, but it's not built up like the Kotel. You literally see the broken stones and the piles, and it's not built. And you literally are sitting in the ruins that we're reading about, the Miyah was talking about. And I just remember sitting there looking around and saying, like, this is what he's talking about. This is what was broken. This is what was, the walls are breached, the country, the city was destroyed. And yes, we have a beautiful, beautiful, amazing, thriving country, but it's still not built the way, it's ideally meant to be built. And then later that night, we drove to Har Herzl, to the military cemetery. And I don't know if I've only been to Har Herzl, to the military cemetery by Har Herzl, so I don't know if any other military cemeteries do this as well. But something that I find very unique with Har Herzl is that, on a tombstone, it says the person's name and, from when and when, from this year to that year. But in addition to that, next to the person's name, engraved on the stone, is how old they were when they died, when they were killed. And even that second that that extra second that it would take to do the math of how long they lived, it's not even there. You'd see it on the stone, 18, 20, 21, even in some cases in the older graves of the beginning of the country, 15, 16, 17, because whoever could hold a gun was sent out to fight, to build the country. And I remember looking at those gravestones, at those ages, and thinking, these children basically who died for me to be able to stand here, what was their sacrifice for? Like, how can I ever repay that sacrifice and show them appreciation and not take it for granted what they did, and and appreciate the land that they gave us, and the security and freedom that they gave us to have this land. And I think we could even fast forward that to now, and and to even the soldiers, that they all should be safe and protected. but all those soldiers that are on the front lines right now protecting us, risking their lives every minute, every day, and not even soldiers, even civilians who are living in the more dangerous parts of Israel where they're less stable and they're having, we don't even bat an eye sometimes when you see in the news that there's rockets in certain cities because it's just, that's the cost of living there. And they're basically ensuring that the enemies don't encroach even closer on us. And even take it further, that God's giving us the ability to be here. We just came off of Yom HaShoah last week, and how many of those Jews that unfortunately died in the Holocaust could have been spared if we had a home to come to, and that was not that long ago. So I think that we need to really, and I'm talking to myself the same way I'm talking to you, of really being conscious of the gift that we're given right now and for the past 72 years, and not to take it for granted, and that to realize that the land is the key, which, when we look back at that Bereshit, God really only promises two things to the Avot. He promises land and children. He doesn't talk about doing mitzvot, really. He doesn't talk about any ritualistic things. I mean, that does come later, obviously, but in the core of it, it's land. And we see where God tells Abraham to go. He just tells him, hold on, where is it? Vayomer Hashem el Abraham lech lecha me'artzecha me'moletecha me'beit avicha el ha'aretz asher erecha. He just says, go to this land. And this land, and in this land, this land and this connection that I'm going to have with you because you're going to this land, because you're following me to this land, to this place, to our home, is where you're going to prosper. And I think that we need to really, really not forget that, and really, especially now, when we're stuck in our homes. I saw someone posted this. I don't remember who posted it, but it really stuck with me that someone posted, being home is a privilege, not a punishment, because of the whole being quarantined situation that we're in right now. And it really stuck with me because I was complaining, and I still am complaining a little bit of, we're stuck here, we can't go out. It really, it's not comfortable. We want to have our freedoms back. And I think that that we have to realize that that there are so many medical workers and that are on the front lines in the hospitals day and night, and unfortunately many sick people that would be thrilled to be stuck at home. They'd be thrilled to be home in security, in with their comforts, and to realize that as someone who made Aliyah, as someone who's constantly still dealing with challenges of that it's not so easy, but it's home, and it's somewhere we should appreciate and thank God and love to be. I see that I have a few questions on the chat for a second. Please tell us your credentials at the end. Do you teach or research? Well, I was a teacher for many years. Then I had some children, and I've been teaching them. I hopefully will plan to, I was actually about to go back to teaching when this Corona situation started, so we'll see where that goes. Can you suggest some practices to help us not take Eretz Yisrael for granted? I think number one is just being conscious of it, and even for myself, just when you read the news and you glance over something like there was a rocket attack, or there was a terror attack. Like I'm guilty of this myself. A few days ago, there was a ramming attack, and I just sort of was like, it shook me for a second, and then you go about your day, and just to really process that. And something else I saw on an Instagram account I follow, which I really recommend, the Real Hadassah. She's great. She lives in the South, and she posts a lot about her experience there, especially during the rockets. I think that you need to realize, like she posted once, there was an attack, and she posted a picture of the person and the name, and she said, just repeat that name. remember, it's not just, one person got hurt in an attack or what. It's a name, it's a person, and to really focus on that, and on the reality of each individual and each person. And something that I don't know if you could do it this year. I'm sure you could Google it, but on Yom HaZikaron, which is, I know there's an initiative now in Israel. No one's allowed to go to the military cemeteries, unfortunately, because usually there's thousands and thousands of people that are going to visit their loved ones that passed on Yom HaZikaron. And because of Corona, no one's allowed to go now. And it's very, very hard for a lot of these families that lost loved ones. And I could try to find information, but I saw someone posted in one of my chats, one of my friends' chats of people here, that there's a service that's linking you with a family of someone who lost someone. And you could call them on Yom HaZikaron and tell them thank you and tell them you appreciate them. And there's also plenty of websites. You could look on Heartline. I think that they tell you about different soldiers' lives and what they did and what their service to the country was. I think really just being aware of what goes into the day-to-day. And really, like, even for myself, like, I am so blessed. It's dark out now, so I can't show you, but I have an amazing view. I'm on the 11th floor, and you see basically all the way through Tel Aviv. It's amazing. And I remember when my brother, I don't know if he's listening, I don't see he was here, but my brother Steven came over, and he looks at the view, and he's like, and if anyone knows Steven, he's not a man of many words, but he was like, whoa, this is great. And I feel like I'm on vacation. Do you sit out here every day and just think how awesome it is? And I was like, I don't, but I should, and just to appreciate those moments and those little, seemingly little things that we could take for granted. Even just, one final thought. I don't actually have a couple minutes left. That with all the Corona going on, my husband made a joke that we have our nightly meeting with the president in the beginning, with the prime minister, with Bibi, because almost every night he was coming on the news with new regulations and new things, and it was before Pesach, and it was just so amazing to see. You're in this country, and he's talking about there's going to be matzah for Pesach, and everything's going to be okay for Pesach, and you're going to have your food, and like, you're not living in a country that's not aware of that. Everyone needs to celebrate Pesach. Everyone needs to have this seder. And the prime minister, the head of the country, is coming on and talking about the challenges that we will have because of Pesach in quarantine, and and just being, and as hard as that was, to be grateful to that, of like, we live in this country where everyone's in the same boat. Everyone has to do these things, and everyone's aware of that, and just I think it's just a heightened consciousness. I have a couple more minutes. If anyone wants to send some more questions or unmute yourself, I think that I really hope that someone's unmuting themselves, I hear.
Me!
Hi, Doris.
I love you and I missed you.
That's your question?
Any questions? A lot, but nothing you can answer on one leg. But I appreciate you bringing us your perspective. And I know it's very difficult sometimes to watch us and hear the way we speak. And I think it's important that we hear from you, because you really know both worlds. So thank you for the perspective, and I hope we could hear it more.
Well, thanks for joining, and thank you, Ezra. Just on that sense, I really hope, and as I was preparing this class, I didn't want to come off at all as preachy, coming aliyah today. It was not my goal. I hope I didn't put that. I think that appreciating and valuing Israel is something that needs to be done within Israel and out of Israel, and it's a challenge for everyone on different levels. But I think back to the question I asked in the beginning of where are we, of why are we celebrating a Yom HaAtzmaut of a country that this Independence Day that we don't live in. that just to realize even doing that is appreciating and valuing our country. And I really, really hope that by next Yom Haasmaut, we could do it with each other and we can all be together and we are not stuck, but we are free and we are secure, physically, emotionally, healthy. And yeah, I really thank you all for coming. And oh, I saw another question. Can you share the site of the soldiers and the view from the south on Instagram? I will try to find the site and share it. I don't have it on me right now. And
hi, John.
Hi, Glenny. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope.
Shout out.
Shout out, Uncle Glenny.
Look who's watching.
Oh, baby, hi guys. Well, I see. This is the personal. All right. Well, thank you all, and go join the other classes. They look great, and thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it, and happy Yom Haasmaut.